Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Super Lunch Roast Podcast, episode 103. I am Brendan. Today we're going to talk about Eagle FC 46, the second Eagle FC card since Khabib purchased a owning share. He's a big promoter as well. I think he has a majority share, and this is the second event in the United States. Kevin Lee versus Diego Sanchez was the main event. I think this one also took place in Florida. Yes, Miami. All right. Before we get started, let me know. Do you guys want me to talk about Eagle FC more? If you guys like that stuff, I'll keep doing them. If not, I can just skip them completely. I'll still watch them, but I won't dedicate time to taking notes because there were a ton of fights this weekend. But please, if you do like this stuff, if you like MMA, please like and subscribe. I do at least one episode every single week. This week is going to be more than one episode because I'm going to split all these up and give each one their own distinct episode. All right, so let's get started. Let's talk about the main event. Oh, actually, let's talk about Eagle FC. Because the last time I covered this, I talked about Eagle FC. I made some comments about their presentation. So I will also make some more comments about their presentation, the service, and all the other stuff. What I like and what I didn't like. What I didn't like. The lighting is still too hot, right? For like my great example. What's going on in this room right now, right? I don't have a lot of control because I don't have blackout curtains. I have a lot of lighting in here and it's too bright, right? It's washing things out. It doesn't look good, right? It doesn't put the focus on what it needs to. That's kind of what you're seeing in the broadcast. Now, I've seen images afterwards, and they look fine. It looks like correct lighting. Everything's in not the correct focus, but the correct highlight, right? It's highlighting the correct features, which is the fighters and the fight itself, and maybe the cage that they're fighting in. So the lighting is too hot. But that being said, it being too hot and way too bright is way better than it being too dark. Dark video is the worst. You always want to err on the side of too much light because then at least everybody will be able to see stuff, right? It also eases up on the post, well, not the post effects, but it eases up on the computational power needed to process the image in high quality because of the more light, the more information that is given to the camera. This is a little bit technical, but you can try it out on your phone, right? Go outside, open up your camera, point it at something, look how clear everything is, take a picture. Now, take that exact same camera and that exact same situation and wait till it's dark out and take that same picture, right? It's going to be grainier, it's going to be processed because it's going to try and let in more light and increase the exposure, which increases a lot of other things. Whereas when you have natural sunlight, if you have natural light, a ton of light lighting things up, you're going to be able to see everything clearly. It's going to give you more information, and then you can post-process it, right? So if you're not doing something live, I'm not doing this live necessarily, but I really only record. I don't do a lot of post-processing. So if you do the post-processing, you can actually take the light back down and then, pick and choose what you want to show. So if they were to post-process like they did with the images from Eagle FC, then you get really good images from the event. So I prefer it being hot as to too cold, or as it being too dim. So all in all, not the worst thing in the world. I'd rather have that. But they do need to work on their presentation. Also, their UI, their graphic interface, right? The overlay that they have needs a little bit of work. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's not. Sometimes the fighters' names are shown, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just the number of the rounds. Sometimes it's just the time. They really got to dial that in. I don't know what's going on with the production. I don't know who they're using or what's going on, but they really need to dial that in. I assume that over time it will get better since this is only the second event in the United States. All right. That's kind of a negative, but not really. I mean, it didn't take away from the event for me. Positive. The user interface, so their site, right, Flexcast, FLX, is easier to use. It's not ideal because they don't have the amount of content that ESPN Plus, okay? I'm comparing it to ESPN Plus. It's easier to use in ESPN Plus. And when you're in a web browser, if you go back to it, it asks you, would you like to continue from where you were playing? Yes, I would. And ESPN Plus does not do that. Sometimes it does it on certain apps, on certain on certain hardware, right? So on certain televisions or on certain phones. Sometimes ESPN Plus will be like, hey, would you like to continue watching where you were? Yes, I would. But it doesn't give you timestamps. It's not the best user interface, but I liked parts of FlexCast better, and it loads faster. It's smoother. I haven't had it crash, although I've only watched 2 events, so it's hard to tell. But with ESPN Plus, it crashes all the time. So overall, FlexCast, not the worst thing in the world. Plus, it's free. So let's talk about the fight, shall we? Kevin Lee, moving over, obviously, from the UFC, coming off of a loss and just a less than stellar career, right? He had that quick rise up with those crazy knockouts, finishes, chokes, and all that other stuff, and then he starts losing to people he should lose to or shouldn't lose to. He just never could put it together long enough to put himself. I mean, obviously he got the title shot or the interim title shot against Tony Ferguson and put Tony Ferguson down like everybody does, and then ended up getting submitted and losing. So he had his shot at a UFC strap and blew it. And then, he also had, I would say, fake swagger, right? He was doing the Kamaru Usman thing, right? But this was before Kamaru Usman was doing it. He was trying to do the Conor McGregor thing. It didn't come off as natural, and since then it's been downplayed a bit. He does have some swag. Let me just say it again. He has some swagger to him, right? He was just playing it up for TV, and it didn't come off as natural. What he does now and how he speaks and all those other things, I feel like it's much better. It's not necessarily my cup of tea when you complain about your losses and give a bunch of excuses, which he had a habit of doing. Obviously, he signed with Eagle FC, which was a big deal. Talking about how he's getting paid more to be in Eagle FC as opposed to UFC, which is interesting. And he's taken on Diego Sanchez, who also a former UFC fighter, been fighting for ever and ever and ever. I mean, what? Hold on. Let's look. How long has Diego Sanchez been fighting? My guess is since I was born. Maybe not that far back, but he does have a very long history. Good grief! Why is this not pulling up? Oh, there we go. Okay. So if you look at it doesn't matter. So this fight, it went the distance, which was kind of surprising. The very first kick that Diego Sanchez threw out blew out Kevin Lee's knee, which was kind of crazy that happened. All right, so here, I just want to put this out here. First pro win was against Michael Johnson back in 2002. So he's been fighting as a professional for a very long time. He's been in the game, and he's got, what is his current record? 30-14, 44 fights, man. Still, that's a respectable record in MMA as well, with only 14 losses, especially the way that they've been coming is for who he is. Anyway, and obviously, we don't have to get into the Michel Pereira fight. Anyway, Lee was the aggressor and constantly walking Sanchez down, taking top position and getting damage in the first round, easily taking it 10-9. In the second round, Diego had Lee's leg really compromised, and that was going to be his key to victory. He just couldn't take advantage of it enough, right? I thought the rounds were relatively close, right? The third round wasn't, but especially in the second round, it was relatively close. But Kevin Lee ended up on top and damaging. You could have gone either way maybe with that second round when I said it was pretty close. But with Kevin Lee ending up on top and putting out that damage, he probably won that second round 2018. And then the third round was more just Kevin Lee unloading, being able to – he was compromised pretty heavily. He wasn't able to grapple the way he wanted to, but still got on top, did a ton of damage, clearly winning the fight. But The fight was a lot closer than it should have been, and that was because Sanchez landed that kick to the knee that compromised Lee early on. So, my takeaways from this fight. Diego Sanchez, not as done as we think, because when he was fighting prospects, top 10, top 15, really good prospects, even right outside, like people looking to make it in the top 15, future title contender type prospects from, if I say that word one more time, I'm going to punch myself. Good grief. When he's fighting those up-and-comers in the UFC with a ton of talent, a lot of skill, and we get this image as well as fighting other veterans who are, still challenging for the title and putting themselves in that kind of position. When we see him lose to them so poorly, we get this image that, oh, he should be done. He looks like crap. And then he had that whole thing with that shit coach the last couple years. It was awful. We don't have to talk. Joshua Fabia, I think his name is. We've talked about it before. We don't need to talk about it anymore. Just awful. We see all that stuff and we see it play out and we're like, oh man, Diego is done. He should retire. He looks like crap. He's taken too much damage. Okay. The last one, probably true. Has taken too much damage. Just the way he fights. Call it a career? Maybe not necessarily, right? Because we're all used to seeing him fight pretty much the top of the top, right? Best of the best, title contenders, that kind of stuff. Really good fighters in the UFC. Guess what? Everywhere else is very different. These fighters don't have the skills that every UFC fighter has. Now, some of them might, and they could be in the UFC, but they're just not. So saying Diego Sanchez should just hang it up, after this fight, I'm not necessarily on board with that anymore. I'm okay with him hanging around, fighting in a place like Eagle FC, taking on, other lower level up-and-comers, people who aren't quite at the UFC level yet, or all older veterans who want to put on a show, that kind of stuff. I wouldn't mind seeing him, engage in those kind of fights. I don't like seeing him get damaged, but that's kind of it is what it is. Now, Kevin Lee. What does this tell us about Kevin Lee? Well, he made it through the entire fight. His cardio held up for 3 rounds, which doesn't really tell me much because he kind of could always. It's 5 rounds that gives him problems. He's fighting a guy who has crazy cardio and could have gotten a lot of trouble if he tried to unload on him and finish the fight and didn't get the finish. So he was a little bit more conservative. He battled through adversity with that messed up knee. So my takeaways for Kevin Lee is, based off just what I saw in this fight, I think he has improved a little bit in those 3 aspects that I said, right? Conservative, mental toughness, and then his cardio. Just from what I saw, he looks like he's been able to manage those 3 things a little bit better just from this fight. So this was a relatively easy test for him, but he passed with flying colors. So let's see what happens going forward. I'm not ready to just say like, oh yeah, he should be back in the UFC fighting for a title or anything like that. Let's see if he can put some stuff together, maybe be the champ at 165, which is kind of the whole deal here, being in Eagle FC, because they have the super lightweight division, which lends itself more naturally to his body type. So going forward, let's see what happens. But this fight was relatively interesting. Let's put it that way, based off of the difference in age, experience, like what we're expecting from each fighter. It was kind of interesting to see how this turned out. Overall, not a bad main event. But yeah, also I just want to say something about this whole card. This could easily have been a Bellator card, as far as the depth of talent here. This could easily have been a Bellator card. In fact, I've seen Bellator cards that were filled with people far less talented than I saw on here. Not that everybody on here belongs in like the UFC or anything like that. No. Comparing it directly to Bellator. All right. Kuniev versus Hamilton. This was for the heavyweight strap. Okay. Rizvan Kuniev versus Anthony Hamilton. Anthony Hamilton. Kuniev gets a guillotine choke in the first round. I never like how Hamilton looks in there. I've seen him fight a lot. Anthony Hamilton used to fight in the UFC. For reference, this is what he looks like. Why is this loading so slow? Good grief. Why is this doing this? Anyway, Anthony Hamilton, I never liked the way he looks, because he always looks like he's slightly off, like he has taken too much damage. And it drives me nuts when I see him. Because I think I'm always worried that, like, oh, this is going to be the last punch he takes and then he's going to end up dying or something. Like, he just looks so bad in there, and I don't like it. But anyway, we will move on from that one. Not much to say about that. Anthony Hamilton, also, he's not like a really good fighter. He's 18-11. Right? There's a reason the UFC cut him. He's a heavyweight. He's relatively athletic but can't take a punch. It's hard to watch him fight. All right, let's go to the best fight on the card. Ray Borg versus Ricky Bandejas. So Ricky Bandejas came from Bellator, I'm pretty sure, and he was like a mainstay there. So the talent level as far as Borg and Bandejas, we're talking about like cream of the crop here. Top talent level, could easily be ranked in either the UFC or Bellator at any given time. Maybe could even challenge for a title, as I think Ray Borg has. Anyway, so this fight played out pretty interestingly, because Bandejas was landing at will, using his kicks early, long straight punches, keeping the distance. He's very tall, so he was able to do pretty much anything he wanted. And then Borg spent the last half of the first round in dominant position on the ground, but didn't land any damage. So I still gave the first round to Ricky Bandejas. So that first round, Bandejas just looked like an absolute monster on the feet. He looked great, landing pretty much everything he wanted, and doing more damage, so I gave it to him. On the second round, Borg just couldn't get inside and wasn't landing anything significant except the leg kicks, and he did that. And he did own a lot of the ground game. I could have given the second round to Borg as well, but he could also have been down 2 rounds. I actually had it even going into the second round. And then in the third round, Ricky was using his jab really well, way out in front of Borg, and but then Borg hurt him with a left hook over the top. And then the volume and total shots were in favor of Bandejas, but the biggest shots came from Borg. I think Ricky Bandejas wore those big shots really well and didn't show how much he was hurt. So based off of perception and how much damage really looked like was done, I gave the last round to Ricky Bandejas just because he unloaded a lot. Like he did a ton of damage himself. I just didn't give I didn't give Borg that last round because I didn't think he outdid all the damage that Bandejas did. That being said, so I had a 29-28 Bandejas, but the judges saw it the other way via split decision. Right? It was a split decision. Yeah. So not a crazy outcome. I was a little surprised by it, but the fact that it's a split decision, I'm okay with. Is very freaking close. So a great fight though. The excellent fight. Awesome fight to watch. If you didn't watch this fight, go on FLXcast, go watch this one. It's really good. Probably the best. It was the best fight of this entire card. All right, we had Henderson Ferreira versus Zach Giusola. This was Ferreira was throwing nasty body kicks, doing more damage in the first round, going up 10-9. Ferreira's on top in the second round, doing pretty much anything he wanted, up 20-18 in the third round, flowing and doing everything that he wanted to do, going up 30-27. That's how I scored it, and that's the way it went out. He won by decision. Ikram Alesgarov versus Nashon Burrell. Another decision. Did I even write these one? Oh, I did. Yeah. It just Alesgarov was the aggressor, the better grappler, and not much damage either way. Taking the first round 10-9, tons of damage and big shots and grappling from Alesgarov in the second round, up 20-18. And then Burrell was able to fight back in the last round. He did not give up, but Alesgarov held on long enough, and even though he looked exhausted, he still still won overall, even though I gave the last round to Burrell. So Alesgarov winning 29-28. Erwin Rivera. This fight was interesting to watch because they were throwing big stupid shots at each other. Erwin Rivera versus Ferreira Kasanov. Rivera with the pressure and the big hands, and then in the second round, I thought he won the first round, but maybe he didn't. It doesn't matter because in the second round, a big left kick from Rivera put Kasanov down, and then he ended up getting the KO. I forgot one fight: Raymond Magomedov versus Delayev versus Impa Kasanganay. So Magomed with the Dagestani fight style, Impa not able to get anything going. Magomedov easily won round 1-10-9. But in the second round, Impa with the early knockdown, and then Impa managed to out-grapple him pretty much the entire round and was threatening... Impa was also threatening submissions in that second round. So he out-grappled him, did more damage, easily go to Impa Kasanganay in the second round. And then the last round could go either way. The control time was in favor of Impa, but the last flurry went to him. And that's the other thing. And there's this the grappling went back and forth, and then in this last round, this fight was also pretty good. It was a little grapple heavy, so if you're not into that, don't go back and watch it. But I thought this last round went the way of Kasanganay just because the very last flurry. I thought the round was even enough that anybody who landed a big shot or did anything significant in the last 10 seconds could take the round, and that's what Kasanganay did. I gave him the win, but it did not go that way. The judge saw it go in the other way. So it was a split decision, though, so I'm not out of my mind to say that. I'm not mad at it, just it is what it is. All right. Archie Colgan versus Dylan Montello. Colgan with the bigger shots and the takedown and the control, 10-9. Montello busted up really bad. More competitive second round, but Colgan easily winning the second round as well, 2018. And then Colgan taking the last round. A pretty exciting fight. So Colgan easily wins that one, and that's, he won the decision. Tyler Ray versus Thomas Webb. This Tyler Ray kid looks like he has a lot of potential. He did pretty much whatever he wanted. He landed some big shots early on, about 100 unanswered shots. 10-8. I don't know what the hell the ref was doing. The second round was closer because both guys actually landed punches, so that was interesting. But Ray clearly won the second round. And then in the third round, it might have been closer, and you could give it to Webb, but who cares? What was surprising to me was Webb was holding his hands up like he did some shit in the third round. Really surprising to me that he had any confidence that he won that shit. Easily Tyler Ray's fight. So if I would go back and watch this one just to see Tyler Ray, to see what you think about him as an up-and-comer and his skill level. He looks like he does have the skills to be a serious contender either here or make it into some of the other bigger leagues. Satik Muduev versus Caro Uruguay. Was this one a fun fight? Oh, Muduev just dominated the whole time. Non-stop forward motion, dropped in multiple rounds. He spent most of the time in dominant position in the first two rounds and then dropped in the third. Easily 30-27 for him. And then the very first fight, Ryder Newman versus Manny Wallo. Wallo with the bigger shots in the first round, up 10-9. Newman more aggressive and some damage, so I had it tied going into the third. And then Newman spent most of the round in advantage in the clinch. Ends the round with a takedown. Hard work from Ryder Newman, easily getting that win. This was actually a relatively skilled fight. It was interesting to see that this was the opener. I thought it was pretty good. Cool. That is all of the fights from Eagle FC. So overall, just to sum this up. So overall, my impressions of Eagle FC so far have been really positive, actually. I like the fact that it's a free product, but it still has the production quality of almost a second-tier organization, right? Obviously, they are nowhere near the UFC level. I wouldn't expect them to be. It just doesn't make sense. I also like that they are paying their fighters. I don't know about their up-and-coming fighters, how they're getting paid versus an up-and-coming fighter being in the UFC. But I will tell you that if a fighter is getting paid more to be a marquee member of the Eagle FC as opposed to being a middling or even a challenger in the UFC. I could see that having a lot of value, and I like that. It increases the negotiating power of the fighters and gives them more options, so I really appreciate that they're doing that. I like the fact that Khabib is involved in it, being a former fighter himself and coming from the UFC, so he understands what's going on. So he also has a relatively good relationship with Dana White, so hopefully that doesn't sour and we don't get a nasty competitiveness. We get a positive competitiveness, right, where we can kind of maybe not share rosters, but they could feed into the UFC relatively easy, and then the UFC could send them down to Eagle FC for when their contracts are up and it becomes a legitimate option for even aging veterans. Like, this could be the veteran league as well. So overall, not a bad card. I watched all the prelims. I watched the main card. Production quality is just not there yet. I really like Chael Sonnen. I thought Henry Cejudo did a better job announcing this one. I still don't like Kamaru Usman on mic. They talk too much. Again, I said this last time. This is coming from someone who talks way too much. I talk way too much. I never shut up. I've had that problem my whole life. It's something I actively have to work on in order to be quiet. And I can tell you that they are talking too much, and not in a fun way, right? They're over-explaining common occurrences in the cage. So they're just over-describing what's going on, as opposed to letting it play out naturally and then adding in some color and maybe some instruction as to what they're doing, and then guiding the viewers along the process and kind of helping them, navigate the more complicated waters of MMA, right, for a casual viewer. And then also throwing in some personal stuff. I like when I thought they did a good job with that. I thought going not off script, right? Because there's no script because it's a live thing. But I like the fact that they kind of went off script a little bit, and they were talking about personal life, and they were talking. They had a discussion about bunions at one point, right? So I think that part, it sounds silly that I would be in favor of that, but I think it adds some depth and some color to the broadcast. And I think going forward, the more it makes it feel more natural as well, and not as forced. Like they're sitting there like, oh, I have to read, like if I just came up here and read word for word my notes and that's all I did the entire time and then didn't add anything in, that's really boring and stupid. Like what's the point? Why would anybody watch that? But that's why you add in your color, you add in your personalization. Some fighters have, or some commentary, they have their thing that they focus on. Michael Bisping always focuses on, useful wrestling, but mainly he loves stand-up, right? Like separate him, always get up. And then you've got Dominic Cruz, who loves to talk about effective wrestling and how they do that. And DC does that as well. I don't like DC as a commentator because in the past he has swayed public opinion in the wrong direction based off of wrestling rules, talking about how Granby rolls and rolling is points for the person. There's no point system here. It's about control. And if someone's rolling underneath you, you're not controlling them necessarily. If you maintain control the whole time on the ground, it's a different thing. Anyway, that's another tangent we don't have to get into. I thought the referees did an okay job. I didn't see them do anything egregious, which is good to see from an organization like this. I like the walkouts. I think that's fun. I think that's something that is missing from the UFC, but I understand why they don't do it, because it allows for more seating, and it doesn't necessarily add to the fighting experience for a lot of people anymore. So, Bellator does it, Eagle FC does it. I like it. It brings back more of the old school feel. So, I really like this organization. I really hope it succeeds. I like watching their fights. I like that they're free. I like they're easy to watch. I can go back and watch them anytime I want. I love all that stuff. So I'm excited going forward to watch more of them. All right, that is it. We are calling it with that one. So let me know what you thought. I'm serious. Please like and subscribe if you like MMA, if you like this stuff, if you like talking about those things. Let me know. God dang it. Let me know if you want more Eagle FC coverage, if you want more Bellator coverage, let me know those things because I will cover them, right? I understand that the market is very saturated with UFC coverage and maybe you're sick of it and you want someone to talk about something else. I will do it because I enjoy watching all these fights. So, all right, you guys all have an awesome week. Love y'all.